Hello, my name's George Adele. I'm a director of trade policy and strategy at EY, the consultancy. I'm going to spend a couple of minutes outlining the 5 reasons that we see that international trade can play in supporting the green transition and the uptake of renewable energies around the world. I think the fundamental point to underline here is that no one can achieve the green transition without trade. There are almost no countries on the planet with the sufficient resources, productive capacity, and technological know-how to do it all themselves. Whether we're talking about the lithium or cobalt deposits that are necessary to go into the batteries that power many renewable energy technologies, all the way through to some of the advanced technology and production processes that are needed to produce those cutting-edge technologies. There is no one country that can do it all. International trade really does play a fundamental part in the exchange of both goods, services, capital, and technology in order to help achieve that green transition. And I think that's really the first point, is that international trade allows us to access a wider range of renewable energy technology that may not be available domestically. The second reason is that it allows countries to import where those technologies that they may not yet have productive capacity in to meet their renewable energy targets in a more cost-effective manner while exporting those technologies that they do have access to. So there is a point around resource efficiency in a world in which the green transition is forcing us all to become more resource conscious in terms of the water, energy, and other types of material that we're using. International trade can drive not only cost effectiveness, but also resource effectiveness in a world of increasing constraints. Access to international markets for many businesses stimulates competition and drives innovation. We wouldn't have many of the technologies that exist around the world without international trade, as that is a fundamental part of companies looking to become more productive. And that's true also in the renewable energy space. It's not just about competition, but also collaboration as well. International trade allows companies to, really leverage the best and the brightest in terms of facilitating the exchange of knowledge between different teams and scientists in order to encourage the best uptake and best practices when it comes to renewable energy deployment. Really quite a fundamental part. So there is also that collaboration aspect to international trade that we see beyond just competition. The final one is the trade agreements and new types of green economy partnerships are helping to create a more robust and interconnected global trading system that is looking at renewable energy as a core part of it, which in turn helps countries promote sustainable development on a larger scale within their own countries. So those were just some of the reasons that we see international trade playing when it comes to helping foster the green transition around the world, and also here in the UK. Thanks.
My name is Rod Davies. I'm currently an honorary professor at the Nelson Mandela School of Public Governance at the University of Cape Town, a member of the Advisory Council on Industrial and Trade Issues at the African Continental Free Trade Area Secretariat. And before that, I was a Minister of Trade and Industry of South Africa for 10 years between 2009 and 2019. I think that we've passed through a period in which not only has trade been regarded as the magic wand to deliver all kinds of important issues like development, And when we talk trade, they mean not just trade, but trade liberalization. We've been through a period in which that has been the dominant ethos, reflected in the power and influence of institutions like the World Trade Organization, whose influence, in my estimation, is a pale shadow of what it once was. But that agenda, I think, drove, not only did it ignore the issues of climate change, not only was that not at the front, but there was a wrong approach in which the solution to any challenge, any emergency, any crisis that the world was facing was deemed to be, in the trade front, more trade liberalization. And I think that is evidently the wrong approach to addressing the issues of climate change. So I think that there is a question of adjusting not just institutional behavior, but also the dominant ethos which has guided trade policy across the world, at least in the period since the 1990s.
So I've seen trade from a whole lot of angles. I've been at this business for more than 30 years. I started out working on Capitol Hill for a United States Senator when we were very involved in legislation connected to trade, which meant I got really early on an understanding of the politics of trade. I then moved in the Clinton administration to an agency in the United States called the United States Trade Representative's Office. So we were the team that completed the negotiations for the North American Free Trade Agreement. That's a deal between the United States, Canada, and Mexico. We also finished something called the Uruguay Round that led to the creation of the World Trade Organization. I then went and worked at an agency in the United States called the U.S. International Trade Commission. When imports come into the United States that are considered dumped, sold at an unfair price, or that received a subsidy, or that violate a patent, a copyright, a trademark, any one of those things, the U.S. producers can come and say, hey, stop those imports because they're unfairly traded. So I was a judge, if you will, on whether that's right. Were those goods unfairly traded? And if so, what do we do about it? Put a tariff on them, stop them, block them? What do we do? So I worked at that agency for a number of years. And when I finished there, I then was appointed to become effectively a judge at the World Trade Organization in Geneva, where you hear disputes between governments when China challenges the United States, challenges the EU in disputes about whether or not there's been a violation of the WTO rule. And I now teach at Georgetown Law School, so a law school in Washington, D.C., where I concentrate on teaching international trade, and more recently teaching in the space around trade and climate change. So not only do I think governments should use trade policy to fight climate change, I think they must. We simply will not get to the scale and speed that we need to for our decarbonization efforts unless we trade, unless we allow goods and services and people and ideas, technology and innovation to cross borders all the time as fast as possible. We've run out of time. So in order to speed up and scale up, we have to use trade tools in the fight against the climate crisis.
Climate change is not a political choice. It's not an option. There isn't a single large company that doesn't have this top of the radar in terms of risk. It's an existential risk, actually. And I think in the Northern Hemisphere, it's very important to understand the basics. A 1 degree increase in temperature on the equator is a 5 to 8 degree increase in temperature in countries closer to the poles. And that includes the UK. So this is absolutely in our interest to help address the issue. But it's not a political choice. And it's also got nothing to do with ULEZ schemes. That's about air quality, not about climate change. So this is absolutely a number one priority. Trade is an enabler to get us to where we need to be in terms of being more sustainable. That's the way to look at it. It's not just about the impact of our production centers and the businesses that we have either here or elsewhere around the global economy. much of the impact actually is in the supply chains. It's not actually where the companies are necessarily based in the UK. It's the companies and exchanges through their global supply chains in other countries. That's the difficult bit. And then trade plays a crucial role in the movement of those goods from A to B. So we can't tackle that climate crisis unless we also tackle the movement of goods from A to B. And then finally, we've done the easy stuff. It's all about the hard choices now as a country. And I think from my perspective, it's now a moral issue. It's not what we want to do. It's what's the right thing to do for our children, who ultimately will pick up the core impact of what we decide to do today. And that will mean different choices. It will mean making hard choices. And it will absolutely mean that we need to look at the role of trade in being a positive, constructive component of effectively moving to become much, much more sustainable, which is the right thing to do.